Warning. This video will contain spoilers for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands when it comes to the bosses, weapons, and certain areas of the game. Please watch at your own discretion. I'll give you a few seconds to click off now.
A place where you can run free. Time does not exist. Take a chance when the road before us falls under our face. I can't hold on. I can't remain so strong. We have the same old bond, but everything is gone. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't make it on my own when I'm alone. My love is gone. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't make it on my own when I'm alone. My love is gone. My love is
Hello guys, Termex here, and welcome back to another Wonderlands video. Now today will be my first Wonderlands video upon full release, and I am really excited to share it with you guys. Today we are going over Ricochet Warden, which is going to be a Ricochet centered build that has Spore Warden and the Stabbo Mancer. Now to get things started, if you are choosing your character just now, you're going to want to choose the Raised by Elves path. It'll honestly help you quite a bit later down the line when it comes to the end game. But what is this build for? No, this isn't your classic glitch build with spell shot. No, we're not using 2 charge spells and 1 tapping with pets. Even though those builds are great, it's all I've really been seeing on YouTube, so I decided to make my own little fun Ricochet build, and it does some pretty good work. But for today's video, I do want to premise that I am Chaos Tier 10. No, I am not Chaos Tier 20 yet, I'm on my way there, but this build has just been honestly demolishing everything, and I'm really excited to get this to its max potential, and of course I'll have that updated once I do hit the end game, and I have every little thing perfect and god roll. But now going into our skill tree first, because this is the more simple part of the build. Over into the Spore Warden side, I think I'm going to cover this first. The first thing we're speccing into is Eagle Eye. We do have +3 from our class mod from this, so we are actually getting 8 out of 5 with the benefits. We are getting 32% gun damage and 40% weapon handling. Helps out quite a bit and just improves on all of our damage. We also have 5 out of 5 into Bounty of the Hunts. Now this will just get us our cooldowns back a lot faster after we get a kill. Great for keeping your cooldowns up and cycling your different passives. And then we have our 1-point skills, which is Spore Cloud and the Mushroom Revive skill. Both of these are very beneficial as our pet will revive us in solo play and multiplayer, but it's just good if you want to save a run, or if you're in Chaos Chamber and you cannot get a second wind. This is such a great ability. And then the other point is just so he could actually taunt people. When you taunt, it's going to basically do a Gamma Burst Red Fang effect from Borderlands 3, and everything's going to target your mushroom instead of you. Now people may be wondering, how come you don't have affinity with ability damage, or you don't have bullseye with gun critical hit chance? And the reasoning behind this is simple. For this specific Ricochet build, we do not need ability damage, we do not need gun critical hit chance, just because we are using From the Shadows. Now From the Shadows is basically the fadeaway equivalent, getting us guaranteed critical hits upon using it, so it's kind of useless to spec into ability damage or even bullseye due to the simple fact that we don't even use ability damage within this build. We also have Quiver of Holding, so we get 30% magazine size and 3% ammo regen per second. Fun things could actually interact with this if you are using something like this shotgun right here. I forgot the name of it, but we all know from the trailer that shoots the arrows. You could actually use infinite ammo on this, because even if you run out of ammo, it reloads fast enough in the bottom right to where if you just wait a few seconds, you will get a bonus shot. And when you only have 1 bullet, you can still shoot the shotgun normally, so it helps out a lot with certain weapons that are ammo hungry, and it still allows them to be viable even though you're out of ammo. We also have Windrunner. Windrunner is movement speed and fire rate after we get a kill, and it stacks up to 2 times, giving us 24% fire rate and 24% movement speed when we get 2 kills. And now we have Called Shot. Now this is more of a controversial one, but I still think it's one of my favorite skills so far. If you do not know, while we aim down sight, we slowly gain gun damage and damage resistance up to 10 stacks, and at max stacks, we're getting almost 60% gun damage and around 50% damage resistance, which is great for survivability as well, but even with this build specifically, you're going to want to be aiming down sight, and even with bigger mag weapons, since we have the bonus magazine size, we have this SMG here with a 55 mag, and while you're aiming down sights, as you can see the outside of my screen, as Moxie would put it, this is the circumference of the radius that we are waiting to see get blacked out, and when it is fully blacked out like this, as you can see in the bottom left, we have 10 stacks of this ability, which is giving us the 60% gun damage as long as we're still aiming. But the second we stop aiming, it will go away and we have to restack it. But it stacks up fairly quick. If you're in From the Shadows, you're going to be getting stacks and slowly getting more passive damage. Honestly, a really underrated ability that I see nobody talking about. This isn't just an ability for snipers, it applies to anything in the game, and even with rocket launchers, this can be pretty dang powerful, but I just recommend using it on anything with a big magazine size or anything that you know you're going to be aiming with for an extended period of time. And now you may be wondering, if we're not using ability damage, why the heck did you spec into the Wrath of Nature? Well, Wrath of Nature is just a great ability because if we ever need to switch from the Shadows, and let's say we want to do Frost Tornadoes because From the Shadows doesn't always work on every boss, we could just switch to Barrage, hit him with our Barrage, and we're still doing 54% more damage. Yes, you can move these 3 points and put them over into Kindred Heart because that will benefit you and still go with the normal build, but I don't really care about the companion health or damage. I don't notice a difference. My Mushroom rarely dies, and if he does, it's usually in Chaos Chamber. Up next, we do have Headhunter. Now, this is gun damage dealt to critical hit areas is just flat out increased by 25%. This just basically means when we hit a critical hit, we're going to be doing 25% more gun damage, and this is basically needed when it comes to a critical hit build. And then finally, the Spore Warden capstone is Play the Angles. Now, with this ability, when we get a critical hit, there's a 35% chance that our bullets will ricochet, and then a 15% chance on top of that they will ricochet again, and the damage dealt is 50% of the gun's critical hit damage. But what people do not know is this counts as ability damage. Now hear me out, when you look at the card, it does say it deals reduced ability damage to nearby enemies. So when Play the Angles procs, you're actually dealing ability damage, and people are very overlooking this because they're like, why would you spec into Wrath of Nature if you're not doing ability damage? Well, the card right here says you're doing reduced ability damage when these ricochets hit an enemy. So when this happens, you do get the increased damage, and I just want to showcase that really quick. Now, it is pretty hard to showcase this in the firing range as nothing internally ricochets off of one another, but the best representation of it is when you shoot an enemy, you're not going to get that benefit from the ability damage. The only way this will work to proc the ability damage is if you hit a critical hit and then the bullets ricochet to another target, let's say, and once that bullet ricochets to this target, this is the target that's getting the Wrath of Nature debuff, not this target. So the target you're shooting at will not get the debuff with Play the Angles, but you want to instead target the other target, basically like the reflux when it came to Borderlands 3. You want to target the thing that you want to do less damage to so it could ricochet, and then once it ricochets, you'll see a number or two pop up. That's when you're going to want to do the DPS to this boss. So if you see an ad on a boss fight, this is the ad. You want to get the ricochet off, make sure the boss gets the Wrath of Nature debuff, and then do your DPS. I just wanted to point that out because it can get a little confusing. And if you're wondering about the Wrath of Nature, you're like, it's only 35% chance and you only deal 50% of your damage. Well, if you look over into the Spore Warden power, this is your most important thing in the game in my opinion, because this improves your Play the Angles damage, and mine is currently at 63%, and this could go miles higher. But I just want to point that out, that your Spore Warden power is very vital to this build as opposed to your Stabbomancer power, because Stabbomancer just increases your From the Shadows duration, and that's not really a big deal. Now, as for the Stabbomancer skill tree, we do have 5 out of 5 into Arsenal, giving us a variety of benefits when it comes to spell, gun, and melee damage. And now we have Potent Poison, so we get 40% more status effect duration and then 20% more status effect damage. Basically, when you light someone on fire, give them a poison proc, anything will be 20% better and last 40% longer. And on top of that, it has great synergy with Exploit Their Weaknesses, because every time a target has a single status effect, they will take 6% increased damage per status effect. So if you light them on fire, your mushroom spores them with the corrosive, that's 12% free damage on that target just for playing the game, basically. And now we have 2 out of 3 into haste. This is just for the movement speed and the melee attack speed, and this is actually doubled when we cast a spell. Great for getting around the map quickly, because the maps in this game are fairly big, and we're not going to benefit from any of these bonus damage things other than Swift Death. I do want to talk about this. Now with Swift Death, it's basically Violent Momentum with Zane, to where the faster you move, the more damage you do. For some builds, this is a great ability and it has a bunch of versatility, but for the build I'm doing with Ricochet Warden, we do not move a lot. We are standing standing still and getting up into the enemy's face. I'll explain that once we get to the gear why we are. So moving at a fast pace isn't really in our cards, and neither is melee damage because this has nothing to do with melee damage. And now we do have the status effect spread chance. I was debating on getting this because it would just apply the potent poisons and it would get us more exploit their weaknesses. But I did go with just more raw critical hit damage because it helps out quite a bit. And then finally run and gun, which is called inclusive in this game. We could actually sprint and shoot at the same time, and as we walk, we get a chance to evade bullets. At default walk speed, this is 10%, so this gives us a big amount of survivability. And now when I go into my hero points, I do have my myth rank up to around 80. It's not that high, but it's still there. I do have dexterity and strength maxed out completely because we want critical hit chance and strength in general, these two classes. But you're wondering, why do you need critical hit chance when it comes to guaranteed crits and fadeaway? Well, like I said before, with this build, you could hot swap to barrage, you could hot swap to your tornadoes, and when you do that, you still want to hit crits and get all of our crit skill benefits that we spent all this time specking into. So the hot swap availability is there, and we still want to hit critical hits even when we're not in fadeaway because we don't want all of our damage to be reliant just from being in our action skill. And this gives us the availability to do so, so that's why I did this certain spec. Other than that, I think the most important thing is attunements and spell cooldown. I don't really care about wisdom status damage, and constitution has just been boosted by my myth ranks, giving us a little bit more health and shield just for the survivability aspect of things. And if you guys are curious or care, in terms of like all my boost, my shrines are all done. I'm still doing some challenge buffs just so you can get an idea of where I am in the game and what benefits I am receiving with this build. And other than that, yeah, that's my myth rank over here. We do have all these points, magazine size, fire rate, gun damage, all the basic stuff that just makes the whole entire build come together. And now finally we go over into the inventory. Now I want to go over our weapons here first because not all of them are important. The main important one is this right here. This pistol is great for this build. I think it was meant for this type of build just because of how good it is. And this is the handbow of the Ricochets. I don't know where to obtain this. Drop rates in this game are weird. Everything's locked to the chaos chamber and getting random boss drops. So if you see this pistol, pick it up because it is basically perfect for this build. It won't say it on the card because we have an enchantment and there's currently a bug to where it doesn't show certain text because there's too much text. But what this pistol does is you get a 6-bullet ricochet upon a critical hit. So every time I shoot a target, you will see this little splatter of bullets, and those are ricochet bullets internally piercing the targets, and those will also ricochet. As you can see, it ricochet to that target right there. And yeah, that is very nice. But on top of that, it has a King's Call like ability to where when you hit a critical hit, it returns ammo back to your magazine. So you can do things like that and you're gonna have a fun time because you're getting those ricochets, you're getting play the angles procs, you're getting the internal Jacobs procs at the same time, and then you're getting the special effect procs from the weapon itself. A lot of ricochet going on here. This is a must-have for this build, and it's the main gravy. Well, what's the term? It's the main butter. I don't know. It's the main peanut butter jelly. It's something for this build. The main thing that makes this build go around. But I do also want to point out the action skill and increased crit is pretty bad, but it will allow you to get some better DPS outside of fadeaway, which is nice, but you can always do better. I'm low on the crystals. I've re-rolled this gun like 500 times trying to get something good. If you can get like on action skill start, deal 40% gun damage, or on action skill start, deal blah blah blah, you're going to be doing even more damage than what you've seen in today's video. And I just want to make that clear that this is not a god roll or even a chaotic weapon by any means, and it is still wrecking basically everything in the game. As for secondaries, we do have the arrows of the Ricochets, which is a arrow shotgun, great for ad clear. We also have the Hurricane, which is a great SMG that is a unique from a Smurf quest, I do believe. I think you do the Smurf quest and then you move on to do another quest where you do like a bunch of evil deeds and stuff. I'm not going to spoil it, but this is a great SMG for ad control and in general anything with a red health bar. And now I do have the Queen's Cry pistol. I don't know what the guns are called half the time. The names are so long and I don't know where's the actual name. Maybe it's called the Stone Prison, but I think it's just the Queen's Cry. This is great cryo pistol and it is a very good DPS weapon. As for the melee, not really too important. We just have the Frying Pan, which is a PUBG reference, but it has this role that is important called Amped. Now this perk does apply a 50% bonus damage to your next 3 gunshots after you melee a target for the next 10 seconds. Basically the way it works is you're going to want to hit 8 targets and then you'll get the amp shot on your gun as you can see here, and then you could shoot your amped bullets. Your next 3 will be amped and it does make quite a difference. Without the amp, we do hit for 27,000 and then we get the amp really quick, we will hit for 41,000. So it's a pretty significant difference when you're coming to a boss DPS or even a raid boss. Just melee and add, melee anything, and then just spam that bonus damage for those next 3 shots. Now for the ring, we do have a chaotic with gun damage and ability critical hit chance. Once again, not great. This is specifically for another build, but I do have this one right here, which is a important one. This one will probably be the one that's equipped in the save file, but you actually get 15% gun damage and the bonus spell radius, which is important. I'll get into that as well. But dealing damage to a boss increases the effects of this by 100%. So we're just getting a bunch of different bonuses that will last a extended amount of time. For my other ring, it's just spell damage with spell critical hit chance, ability critical hit chance, and a generic. While health is above 50%, we get more increases to these benefits, which is nice. Our class mod is going to be a Spore Warden primary and Stabbo secondary. I did mention that is why we have the whole bonus Spore Warden power, so we get more damage off of play of the angles. And while we stand still, we actually gain 50% increased critical hit chance, which is nice, and 50% increased fire damage, which is also really cool. Very fun class mod and helps out a lot with a bunch of content. And we did get some nice rolls. It's also a chaotic, so it has higher stats than a normal class mod. We have almost 30% gun damage, 17% area damage, and higher ward regeneration rate. And then for the amulet, which is also chaotic, we have a bunch of Spore Warden power and fire damage that gives us benefits to basically everything. But for the rolls, we have 17% gun reload speed and 11% all damage dealt, which basically means everything we do is just 11% better. And while our health is full, healing from dark magic increases maximum health. I never use this because I have no dark magic within this build. That might be a turnoff for some, but I just never preferred using it when I'm using a glass cannon build. You could throw it in there on a spell if you wanted to, but our spell is very important. On spell cast, increase ability damage by 30%. This is meant for the blizzard build, but you can re-roll this to your heart's content if you want something like on a spell cast, more gun damage, on spell cast, more fire damage, anything of the sort. But the thing great about this is it creates a protective barrier around the player, which is pretty big, and it's even bigger because we have a spell radius roll, as you can see here, and anybody or anything within this dome gets 8% health regeneration per second, and they deal 20% more damage, including you, including your guns, including your spells, including your abilities. So putting this on yourself on a very, very short cooldown, as you can see, we pop it down, and for this whole time, we have the bonus benefits dealing even more damage, and it's pretty significantly noticeable. If we go out of this and we hit the target, we hit for around 26k, and our dome just went down, and we're already back on a 5-second cooldown. So the uptime on this is pretty significant. So we're going to go from, let's say, 27k, go in our dome really quick, and we're hitting for 31k. And this could even be increased if you get the bonus amp shot right here, and then you go even further with this at 47k, and you're starting to see how this damage all stacks up at the end. And then our final resistance of the build is going to be the Cursed Wit. On action skill start, we get increased gun damage by 40% for 10 seconds. Amazing enchant for this build and what it's trying to do. But the main benefit of this shield, basically, is going to be when our ward is depleted, we gain 17% damage reduction, and then we gain 100% increased bonus damage dealt to nearby targets. Now, this is subjective to distance, so if I am on an enemy right here and my shield breaks, I'll probably only hit for like 20% bonus damage from here. But if I'm right here, we're getting that full 100% damage. And that's why I am barrel stuffing a lot of the bosses in the intro clip, because that is what it's going to do, and just double everything we're doing on top of this 20%, on top of the 50% from the amp, on top of our From the Shadows benefits, our kill skill benefits. Everything is just going to benefit each other, and it will work out very well. I will say it does lack when it comes to survivability, and it's all in the skill of the player at that point to maintain life, and maybe swap out some dark magic if you guys prefer to. I do want to let you guys know that the save file for this build will be in the description below, and I will be updating this build when I hit chaotic 20, when I get all the god roll gear and optimize this build even more in the future. To stick by my channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you never miss out on another video from me. If you enjoyed today's video, consider leaving a like on it, as it helps me out a lot and spreads my videos out to the Wonderlands and the Borderlands 3 community. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. You guys have a terrific day, and I will see you guys later.